In 1977, a submersible descended to the seafloor near the Galápagos Rift and found life thriving in complete darkness, 2.5 kilometers down, in water hot enough to scald, with no sunlight and no photosynthesis. Every biology textbook said that was impossible. Within months, those textbooks were being rewritten. The discovery of hydrothermal vents did not just add a new habitat to the catalogue of marine environments. It forced biologists to reconsider the fundamental architecture of life on Earth. For as long as scientists had studied ecosystems, one rule held: energy flows from the sun. Plants capture sunlight, herbivores eat plants, predators eat herbivores. Remove the sun, remove the foundation. But at hydrothermal vents, there was no sun. There was only heated seawater, dissolved minerals, and an entirely different kind of chemistry. Hydrothermal vents are fissures in the ocean floor where geothermally heated water erupts from beneath the crust. They form near mid-ocean ridges where tectonic plates pull apart and magma wells up to create new seafloor. Cold seawater seeps down through cracks in the rock, is heated by the magma below, dissolves metals and sulfur compounds, then rises back up and exits through chimney-like structures. The water emerging from these vents can reach temperatures above 370 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead, yet it does not boil because the pressure at that depth is so extreme. The environment around a vent is hostile by nearly every measure. Pressure exceeds 250 atmospheres. The water is acidic, laden with hydrogen sulfide, heavy metals, and methane. There is no light. The surrounding deep sea is cold, near freezing, and the vent fluid cools rapidly as it mixes with ambient seawater, creating steep thermal and chemical gradients within meters. By the logic that governed biology in 1977, nothing should live there. But when the submersible Alvin reached the Galápagos vents, the crew found dense clusters of giant tube worms, white crabs, clams the size of dinner plates, and clouds of shrimp. The biomass was extraordinary. In most of the deep ocean, life is sparse, sustained by organic particles drifting down from sunlit surface waters. At the vents, animals were packed together, growing fast, in an oasis of abundance with no connection to the sun. The question was immediate: what were they eating? Researchers collected samples and began testing. They found bacteria living in the water, coating the rocks, and residing inside the tissues of the tube worms. Chemical analysis revealed that these bacteria were not photosynthetic. Instead, they were chemosynthetic. They derived energy not from sunlight, but from the oxidation of chemicals in the vent fluid, primarily hydrogen sulfide. The bacteria used that energy to convert carbon dioxide into organic molecules, building the base of an entirely independent food chain. This was not a minor variation on a known theme. Chemosynthesis had been observed in laboratory conditions and in some soil bacteria, but it had never been documented as the foundation of a large, complex ecosystem. The giant tube worms, which can grow over 2 meters long, have no mouth and no digestive system. They host chemosynthetic bacteria inside specialized organs and rely entirely on those bacteria for nutrition. The worms absorb hydrogen sulfide from the vent water through their bright red plumes and deliver it to the bacteria. The bacteria produce organic compounds, and the worms absorb those compounds. The partnership is obligate. Neither organism can survive without the other. Within a few years, more vent sites were discovered along mid-ocean ridges in the Pacific and Atlantic. Each site hosted similar communities, built on chemosynthesis, thriving in darkness. The discovery forced a conceptual revision. Life was no longer defined by its relationship to the sun. Energy could come from geochemistry, from the heat and minerals of the planet itself, and that energy could support ecosystems as productive and complex as any coral reef. The implications extended beyond marine biology. hydrothermal vents became a leading hypothesis for the origin of life on Earth. The conditions at vents provide heat, a supply of reactive chemicals, mineral surfaces that can catalyze reactions, and steep chemical gradients. Some researchers argue that life may have begun at alkaline hydrothermal vents, where warm, alkaline, hydrogen-rich fluids meet cooler, more acidic seawater. These vents, sometimes called white smokers, create natural electrochemical cells that could have driven the synthesis of organic molecules and supported primitive metabolism before the evolution of photosynthesis. The hypothesis is debated. Other origin-of-life models favor shallow pools, tidal zones, or impacts from spaceborne organic material. But the vent hypothesis is supported by the chemistry observed at active sites and by genetic evidence. Analysis of the last universal common ancestor, the organism from which all modern life descends, suggests it was anaerobic, used chemiosmosis to generate energy, and may have lived in a high-temperature, chemically rich environment. The inference is indirect, based on shared genes across bacteria and archaea, but it points toward an environment much like a hydrothermal vent. Fossil evidence provides additional context. Microfossils from Quebec, dated to shortly after the formation of Earth's oceans during the Hadean Eon, may have formed in hydrothermal vent precipitates. If confirmed, that would place life in vent-like environments within a few 100 million years of Earth's formation. The timeline suggests that the process of abiogenesis, the transition from non-living chemistry to living cells, was geologically rapid. Hydrothermal vents also exist, or are thought to exist, beyond Earth. Saturn's moon. Enceladus ejects plumes of water vapor and ice particles from a subsurface ocean, and the chemistry of those plumes suggests hydrothermal activity. Jupiter's moon Europa, which has a thick ice shell over a global ocean, may also host vents driven by tidal heating. If chemosynthetic life can exist at Earth's vents without sunlight, it could in principle exist in the dark oceans of icy moons. The discovery at the Galápagos Rift expanded the search for life in the solar system, but the central biological revolution was complete by the early 1980s. The vents proved that ecosystems do not require photosynthesis. They proved that Earth's internal heat, not just solar radiation, can power complex life. And they demonstrated that organisms can adapt to extremes previously considered incompatible with biology. The giant tube worms, the chemosynthetic bacteria, the entire vent community existed as evidence that life exploits any available energy gradient, no matter how hostile the surrounding conditions. The question that remains unresolved is how common this alternative architecture is. Vents are distributed along tens of thousands of kilometers of mid-ocean ridges, but most of the deep ocean floor remains unmapped at high resolution. New vent sites are still being discovered. The Endeavour hydrothermal vents, located 2,250 meters down off the coast of British Columbia, were confirmed by Alvin in 1984 after sulfide samples covered in tube worms were dredged 2 years earlier. Each new site reveals variation in temperature, chemistry, and biology. Some vents emit fluids above 400 degrees. Others are cooler, more diffuse, hosting different microbial and animal communities. The scale of vent ecosystems, their contribution to global ocean chemistry, and their role in the evolution and maintenance of deep-sea biodiversity are still being quantified. Autonomous vehicles survey the terrain. Fiber optic cables deliver real-time data from instrumented vent fields. But large areas remain inaccessible, too deep or too remote for sustained observation. What is certain is that the discovery in 1977 was not an anomaly. It was a window into a parallel biosphere, one that had existed for hundreds of millions of years, unseen, powered by the planet's interior rather than its star.